I just had the incredible opportunity to sit down with Dr. Edith Eva Eger, who is an eminent psychologist and one of the few remaining Holocaust survivors that are old enough to actually remember their life in the camps. She's a colleague of Viktor Frankl, the author of A Man's Search for Meaning, and Dr. Eger has worked with veterans, military personnel, and victims of physical and mental trauma. She is the author of best-selling and award-winning books, The Choice and The Gift, and is now the author of the latest book, The Ballerina of Auschwitz, detailing her journey in the camps. And she's going to sit down with me right now and have a chat about it. So stay tuned. So I just wanted to first intro our conversation with, as I was sharing behind the scenes, just such wholehearted gratitude for you, Edie, taking the opportunity to sit down with me now a second time. And of course, to be joined by your grandson, Jordan, having had the opportunity to know of your life, to read of your life in the works or the previous books that you've gifted to the collective, and now to have the opportunity to get my hands on your newest book that is just being released, The Ballerina of Auschwitz, which we're going to dive into right here. I am just, again, so grateful for who you are, the wisdom that you embody. So thank you for sitting down with me here today.
Thank
So
you very much. I'm so happy we met, and hopefully, I'll give you a big hug when I see you in person.
I will hold that vision, that's for sure. I think a really great kind of jump off point, maybe perhaps some listeners have read your past books, The Choice, The Gift, where you talk about your experiences in the concentration camp, though. Now you're coming out with this newest book. So I guess my first question really is, what was the inspiration? Why this book? Why now? What is it that inspired you to put out this work into the world?
I was very interested in teenagers for many, many years because they are no longer children and they're not yet adults. And I think I come in a good time in their lives that they're not going to take drugs so easily as they used to, and concentrate more on how to be a good reader, and obviously a very good member of the human. Uh, we'll, we'll, we'll give them a hug in person if you and I will talk together. That's a promise.
And they need it. Many of them, I could say. And so, yeah, so for listeners, I should say, and possibly future readers, hopefully future readers, this book is really, kind of a translation for, it sounds like, right, a much wider audience, including the very sensitive. I'm sure many listeners probably have adolescents or teenagers that they're in care of themselves or interact with, and a really sensitive point of development. And even hearing you describe your intention brings to mind an aspect of the early portion of this book, which is, of course, based on your own experience. And it struck me because it really resonated with my own journey, of course, different external contextual factors, but you really went into talking about um, identity, right? And kind of who you were, first and foremost, predominantly, of course, even before the concentration camp experience, within your family. And you spoke a lot about kind of the identity, the roles that you've had to play in your family, and then ultimately your own kind of journey in acceptance. So thinking about teenage years in particular, when I think that's the time and space that a lot of us venture out to explore our identity, before we get to, of course, everything that happened and shaped your identity as part of the experience in the camps. Can you say a little bit about kind of your early maybe memories of those early years, foundational years, as you were kind of thinking about or struggling through your own identity, and of course, the impact that family, as I talk often in my own work, right? Family impacts who we think we are. So can you just share a little bit about kind of early Edie days before, of course, we shift into the life-changing experience that would come.
When
Yes.
you as little Edie,
Mm.
sweet little Ditsu, her nickname growing up was Ditsu, and I actually always called her Grandma Ditsu. And Ditsu is just a cute little name that I don't know who gave to you. I don't think you know who gave you that little name, but she grew up as Ditsu.
Reaching 97, you go through many different stages, and I am so lucky that I'm here at 97 birthday, and I hope to be 100 and talk to you again. I think you are a very, very talented interviewer, and I feel honored really to be interviewed by you.
Edie, when you were born, they wanted to have a boy.
I wanted to have a boy, and I became the third girl. You know how we call the youngest child in a family? They called me charming manipulator. And I think that's very true because I used to go to the coffee house where my father was playing and playing billiards and cards. And when I asked him for money, mm, I always saw my daddy being very generous when he was with his cronies. But every moment counts now. I hope to get up early in the morning and do my routine and hoping that the day is going to go well and I'll be able to walk as the doctor asked me to do that. And I'm talking to you now, and it's going to be a wonderful birthday and a half. Yeah.
And I think kind of what you're even describing, right, is all of these kind of evolutions of identity, right, from childhood nicknames to modeling, perhaps, seeing parents act in particular ways as you're describing your father. Ultimately, I do believe, the impact shapes us in terms of who we believe we are and ultimately who we become. And hearing you even say the word in your answer just then, hope. I want to ask you. So, of course, for those who know your story, for those, of course, who don't know your story, I should say, when you were kind of in your teenage years, you were essentially taken as your family, shipped off onto a concentration camp. So, of course, I welcome you to share about that experience, whatever it is that you feel comfortable. But I really want to speak a little bit about hope and assuming, right, or understanding the gravity of the suffering and the circumstances, the hell essentially that you witnessed. Can you speak about how was it? I mean, I'm sure many listeners would, imagining themselves in that position, not be able to hold on to hope. So how was it that you were able to hold on to hope as your circumstances shifted from a more or less, right, normal, maybe teenage experience into one that many of us can't even imagine?
My ballet master told me that I was born with a gift that I can bring ecstasy. He used that word that I didn't know what he was saying, but now I do. And yes, it was ecstasy that kept me going, that this is temporary. I don't like it, it's inconvenient, and I will step out of Auschwitz and thank you, God, I did it. I stepped out of Auschwitz and I'm in La Jolla. So hopefully I will have a book out entitled From Auschwitz to La Jolla.
She's already planning her next book
It
at
is,
97 years old. I mean, talk about hope, right? It's
I mean,
just keeping focused on the next thing. I know you've read the book, so you know the story, but she had this boyfriend, this wonderful person that always existed in our household as this character that we never met. Edie had this boyfriend Eric, and it's like I feel like I know him. He's been a just this guy that I always related to because he was this soccer player and I played soccer, and he was just an interesting guy who was sweet with this girl that happened to become Edie, that really was sort of the motivator for Edie throughout surviving Auschwitz. And when we talk about hope, I always had this story about Eric who imbued this vision for Edie in that last moment before they separated, that said, "I'll never forget your eyes and I'll never forget your hands." And that powerful statement stuck so deep into her subconscious and into her heart that she refused to acknowledge that she might not survive, that she might not have that experience. And obviously, if you've read the book, you know what happens. But the power of having a vision is so important. And I take that from Edie. I've learned, I've sat at the feet of this woman, both as a baby as well as now as a man. And the hope that you have, the hope that you give us is something that Eric gave to you. And maybe in turn, that's why you're giving it to us so beautifully.
I think one day at a time works, that you have the sunshine, hopefully, when you get up tomorrow morning, and start eating a good protein breakfast, that you are a good mommy to you.
I had full body chills actually when I was thinking of that part in the book, Jordan. Thank you for sharing. And really just Edie thinking of you embodying hope in the most deplorable, inhumane circumstances, and really thinking and hoping listeners are kind of imagining, right, how impossible it might feel from wherever our vantage point is, where we're sitting, though here we are hearing you, right, share that it was possible, right? You were able to find the smallest of moments in those circumstances, regardless of what was happening in those circumstances, to give you that possibility of a future that would inevitably, as it has to come to be the case, look different.
You have to give up yes, but, and change it to yes, and. That's all. It's very simple. Yes, and I will step out and I will live in the present and plan my future and see to it that I will someday open up the door to our place in Kasha. Košice is now as part of Czechoslovakia and Hungary, and I am so happy that I have books too, and my daughter went to visit, and I am just the happiest 97 who ever came to this wonderful world.
I really want to just pause and hope listeners.
Very happy. I make a good Hungarian goulash, and
I bet you do.
when you come,
I will look forward to it with the hug. But when I hear you say such a practical piece of wisdom, really, with us all, I hope this is sinking in, that back to that, right? And shifting the but to and. And speaking personally, I'm someone who made that a practice in my own mind by first noticing how many times I used the word but, right? Kind of negating the sentiment right before, and the shift and the freedom as I've created a newer habit of this beautiful piece of wisdom that you're sharing when you say notice, right? And it can be, yes, this is happening. I'm sure listeners are in the middle of their own suffering or struggle, though there's always the possibility, right, for that end. I want to dive a little more. Go ahead.
Very well said, and I hope that you will continue the beautiful work that you do and make more and more and more connection to the world that hopefully will be peaceful.
That is my hope. That is much like I'm sure your hope, why we share, right, in the way that we do, to teach from our, of course, very different experiences, though, to give people awareness, understanding, hope, and tools, really, as you so eloquently and powerfully do. And one of the tools that I know my community is going to resonate with. And I want to first read a quote from your book, because you really, in more practical, right, you talk about the power of the mind, our thoughts, throughout the entirety of your story, how you're able to, I'm imagining, find hope in these moments. And you beautifully write, quoting from the book, "This is how we survive, how we dance in hell. We use our minds. We can choose what the horror teaches us. We make up our own minds about how much suffering we can endure." So I read that. I'm a quotes person. I love it. As I shared before, I pretty much, your whole book of quotes was just so beautifully written, or the whole book, I should say, is a beautiful quote, illustrating your experience. But can you share a little bit about how was it that you were able to control the thoughts? Because I know some of us, right, racing thoughts, overwhelming thoughts. I can't imagine some of the thoughts that you were having. So how was it that you were able to use your mind or control your thoughts to give yourself some semblance of peace or hope, as we were just talking about in those moments?
Because of my mother in the cattle car told me that everything can be taken away from us, and that's really happened too. And then she said, but no one will take what you put in your mind. And that's what I repeat, that my mother hugged me in the cattle car. And then we arrived, and there was a sign, Arbeit macht frei, that means work makes you free. And my father said, that's not bad at all. We're just gonna work and then go home. No, that's not what happened.
You
But
can't take what's in
I was
your mind.
interviewed. When I was interviewed, I asked, when will I see my mother? And she pointed at the chimney and told me very close. Um, um, she said, uh, actually, she tried to be kind, but she said, your mother is a spirit now, and um,
She's how I know the story, not that I know it better than you, mind you, but it's that she said you can talk about your mother in past tense. She's
yes,
burning there.
that's exactly what she said.
And then Magda, her sister, who she was with throughout her experience in Auschwitz, said to you,
The spirit never dies.
yeah. And in
And
fact,
her spirit is with me.
100%. Yeah.
Magda was a brilliant bridge player, too. I think she played with Omar Sharif. Uh, and that's quite a good person to be playing. Yes.
Edie, you keep the spirit alive for your mother and your sister and your father with all the work that you do. That's a
Yes,
testament.
I will work as long as I live.
Being your brought up, the experience that you shared right there with your sister being alongside of you, I'm wondering if you're willing to just speak to whatever it is that is coming up for you when you think about having, right, a sibling, living this experience. Really simply, what was it like for you to now, right, not have the connection, to be told so bluntly, right, that your parents are no longer alive, literally, and now to be left there with a sibling, of course, both of you having similar, though I'm sure different experiences. So how was it to navigate being in this experience with a sister alongside of you?
My sister flirted quite a bit, and she was really a flirt and did it very well. But I don't think she did anything sexual. It just liked really to show herself and wearing a beautiful bathing suit. And I remember we had the same kind. It was white with red lines on it. And I think I knew when I am being viewed by the boys, and I kind of showed my body as well as I could. Um, wow.
How was it having Magda with you in Auschwitz? How did it
Magda in Auschwitz was very preoccupied with someone who was with us, who just got married, and Magda wanted to know about sex. That's all she wanted to know. How you do it, what you do, did you do it, and so on and so on. That
did
was her subject,
Magda
sex.
Magda wanted to know, or you wanted
Magda.
to know?
Well, I will tell you an old age home, and this woman is walking around, and on one door it says sex. So she goes in and she tells the man that you must be a sex addict, and gave him hell. and and then he said, but I charge $5 on the floor, $10 in a chair, and $20 in a fluffy, beautiful bed. And the woman is thinking and replies, I want the $5 kind 4 times. So
Where were we?
I don't know why I say to you that um,
It's very on brand, Edie, that you make a joke though when we're talking about Magda, because Magda was the queen of jokes and always made time to make you laugh. And that was her gift. Edie I think Edie started telling jokes when Magda left us because she had to hold up Magda's side of the relationship. And there's a moment in Auschwitz, which is a story from the book that I think is so telling about how you two survived and how really humanity exists even in the darkest places. And Nicole, you were probably going to go there, but about the boob contest. And that was one of those moments of levity, even in the darkest of hours. Can you want to tell us about it?
Everything what I talk about, I did it here.
So much of what I'm hearing
We
too.
had to get along with each other.
Mhm.
That's all we had.
Right.
And we never knew what's going to happen. 4 o'clock in the morning when we stood in line. And they told us if we don't feel well, we can stay over and not to come and stand. But we never saw that person again. So we learned to hold on to each other Don't stay over.
So
Yeah.
very powerful, right? All of these ways in which you learned to allow your natural relationship as siblings to be supportive, of course, given the horrors happening around you. And yet, even within that relationship, going back to, as we were talking earlier about identity, and yet, right, the two of you were in many ways still being who you were, right? With Magda joking, with, you being you, and Jordan as you're, beautifully offering. And then yet even still there was moments of sisterly, right? Normal, seemingly normal interactions. I'm sure there was levity and simple moments of the boob contest, for lack of a better word, right? And so to even be able to imagine being able to hold on to these aspects of who we are and not to just completely allow what is happening around us to overtake us or become that atrocity in that moment, as I'm sure you also had equal experience of seeing humans not being so loving to each other as naturally happens when we are feeling threatened ourselves, but to hear of so many other moments that you beautifully share throughout the book of,
We had a bowl, and we did everything with that bowl. Uh, and that we cherished that bowl. So Magda ate everything right away, and I ate that soup, which wasn't really a soup, was kind of warm water. Uh, But then I saved so Magda would not really suffer as much from hunger as I did. She did lose weight, but she never was as skinny as I began Auschwitz and became more and more skinnier. But thank God I can talk to people what good people do when they do something very bad.
even hearing you describe, right, all of the physical loss,
Oh, yeah.
loss of people, loss of home, loss of body weight, body mass,
Never
loss of,
knew when you left that barrack whether you're going to be back or not. Uh, I think we had to be kind to each other. And kindness goes very far in a place like that. Uh, we, uh, we really became sisters, and mm, no boys, no male, just the girls. And I think we were very much aware that all we have is each other. And that's true. All we had was each other then, and all we have is each other now. So we better go to the market and I'll pick up a tomato and I say, the tomatoes look pretty good today. And a little wink, maybe. I don't know, but I'm 97 and I still can flirt.
But it's really to be kind, right?
The
That's the
kindness is the ticket.
yeah. You're so you love kindness in others.
I love kindness with people who maybe never got some.
Hmm.
even hearing you say,
But
right,
I got out of Auschwitz in December 1944 to Mauthausen. We walked from Poland to Vienna. Uh,
hearing
I
you
wish
say,
I could.
okay,
I wish I could meet the man who took care of us because
Who rescued you?
because I think he uh, he wanted to do whatever he could so we would make it. And we were walking, 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 but also the bombs were falling too. And we didn't know whether we were going to live or not. We were in a cattle car, and one of them is here. They bought it in Germany. It's
Cattle
somewhere in
cars.
the south. That is one of those that we traveled in. So continue as you do so beautifully, so people would know that good people, unfortunately, can do bad things, very bad things. Yes.
And I think
Like
continue to land on the inspiration, even hearing you share of like this gentleman who was there, many moments of kindness, of compassion. So again, just so we're all sitting here listening, and even the title of one of your earlier books, The Choice. Like these are, I think, some areas, some emotions where some of us don't believe we have choice. We don't believe we can choose kindness. We don't believe we can choose compassion. We don't believe we can choose who we love, how we love. Direct words taken from your book, right? And you are of the belief in what you are, your life is really a gift in a teaching that we can choose. We have much greater choice than we think, regardless of our circumstances. And ultimately, we can make those choices to live now, right? We can always choose, again, using your language, to be free. And when I think of choice, I want to just, again, very generally, we have choice, going back to you were describing earlier, in terms of how much suffering we can handle. And then ultimately on the other end, what we do with it. So what has your choice been in terms of how is it after all of the things that you saw and experienced? How is it that you are now able to understand what happened, or to understand your trauma so that you yourself, right, have not allowed it to conquer your life?
I think suffering made me stronger. And if you, I'm sure you suffered too, that maybe somebody forgot your birthday or whatever happened. And it's very good to grieve, because what comes out of your body doesn't make you ill. What stays in there does.
Edie, there's an interesting story that I will connect that saying with, which is Edie, all growing up, when my mom was younger, had migraine headaches that were crippling, and you would have to lie down in a dark room and cover your face, and you had this oppressive headache that would come back over and over again. And that was while you weren't able at that point in your life to speak about what had happened. And when you returned to Auschwitz after becoming a psychologist and having the epiphany that you couldn't take your patients further than you had gone yourself, when you made that transition to say, I will look at what happened to me, and I won't allow it to control me anymore. You went back to Auschwitz. You had this epiphany that it didn't control
Yeah,
you.
you revisit the places where you've been, you relive the experience, and then you revise your life. That's the number 3.
And then, Edie, after you did all of that and you revised your life, did you have more headaches?
I don't have any headaches, none at all. So be a good mommy to you before you get mommy with anybody else.
I appreciate you sharing that aspect of the physical symptoms, illnesses, diagnoses even that can come, as I speak of often in my work, really informed by my own witnessing of my mom, who, as I believe now, having access to all of this information, including the body and trauma, and like you're saying, right, grief, it's in us. We have to get it out.
I
And
went to the, go ahead.
no, please.
I think it's important to know that we never forget what happened. We can bury it and leave it there, but then it's going to pop up here and then and again and again. I think it's important not to run away, not to deny it, but to face it and bury it and leave it there. I think it's good to count the many times maybe in school you were walking around with your lunch and nobody invited you to have lunch with them. Things like that. And you say, oh, no, it's not a big deal. When you are 13, 14, it is a big deal. So take that little girl in you and take her for a walk and buy her a ice cream cone and celebrate.
I want to,
She's crying.
yes.
She wants a good mommy. And that's you.
I want to capture kind of what you're saying again in your beautiful words offered in your newest book, The Ballerina of Auschwitz. And you share, we can't change what's happened to us. We can't alter the past or control what's coming around the next corner. And as I shared earlier, but we can choose how we live now. And then you share something that your mom used to share with you, which was when you can't go through a door, you go through a window. And then you go on to say, there's no door for survival or recovery either. It's all windows, but you can't stand where you are. You must find a way. And I wanted to read that because I just think all of those, words that are giving me chills, really captures, again, your journey up until now, age 97. I mean, Edie, if you are not the embodiment of finding a way, of walking into the darkness and of finding your way. And I even think about you navigating the trauma of all of it, right? Without the resources that even our field of psychology had access to for decades. So again, I'm getting chills as I'm saying this. Who you are and how you've been able to not stand where you are, to turn your suffering into inspiration for myself and quite literally millions, and the legacy that you're now leaving, not only your beautiful family, but all of us, the universal family, in your books and in your work. I mean, again, if I just want to continue to repeat your beautiful words back to you, you are the embodiment of finding a way, truly.
Turning anxiety into excitement. I sometimes use words like, gee, oh, wow, words like that, oh, I didn't wait for this, or something that makes me lighthearted with a warm heart and a good head to think about my thinking.
I spend a lot of time with Edie, and you see her here, and you see this version of Edie, and you see her shining bright with her purpose. But there's the other moments where she's just a regular person, and it's between the moments, and she plays Rumikube. She's an amazing Rumikube player, and loves to cook, and she loves my little boys. I have 4-year-old twin boys, and she kisses them on the head. And there's all these other little moments in between. But then she comes here, and she gets in our little podcast room, or we go and give a talk or something, and there's just fire. There's fire in her eyes. There's passion in your spirit. You sit up taller. I can see the blood coursing through your veins. And to me, it is the living example of how important it is to live in our purpose and to never stop that purpose. Your purpose can shift. It doesn't have to be a single-minded purpose, but having a focus, whether you're a young person in high school, whether you're a middle-aged person raising a family or in a career, and then finally after into quote unquote retirement or older age, to never give up a passion. Because I see if you didn't have this thing to keep you motivated, you wouldn't be so healthy, you wouldn't be so vibrant. And I love being getting to sit here next to you and watch each time we get
Yeah,
here and you're
yeah.
just get beautiful and get ready and bring
Uh,
it. And
Not gonna say it until I don't know what I'm gonna say until I say it. That's what my husband used to ask. What are you gonna say? And my answer was, I don't know until I say it.
I think that's a
Anyway,
beautiful testament to this message, literally, right? The channel that you are, it just is coming from within your soul, your heart. I would even say something beyond a universal intelligence, that you are the channel and the gift to give us that message.
I think there's a lot of people who have a similar message. I think the question for most people is, who's my messenger? And, you know, obviously you are a messenger for many people and many people resonate with you. Is your wisdom unique? Sort of, but it's there. It's just that you people, when they hear it from you, they say, "Ah, that actually feels really good for me. I can listen to that." And it's the same. Edie speaks to many people who somebody else didn't speak to, and they hear it, they're like, well, if a Holocaust survivor that looks like this and acts like this can say it, then who am I not to believe it? And that's the beauty of it, is that it's the wisdom is usually pretty consistent. It's it works through us at the best moments. It's
see, that was in New Zealand, and my husband asked me, what are you gonna say? And I replied, I don't know until I say it.
and you were giving like a keynote address for some
Right.
huge thing. They'd
Wild.
flown into New Zealand, business class, hotel, the whole thing.
Just roll.
They're in the elevator going to do it, and she's like, okay, what are you going to talk about? And she's like, I don't know. I'll know when I say it. And it's like this big thing, you know, big thing. And Edie just shoots from the hip and delivers.
New Zealand is beautiful. I hope you get to see it.
Is on my travel list. So maybe you are my universal messenger that I should get there sooner rather than later. But even going back to Jordan, thank you for offering that and kind of bringing up and EDU sharing, because the embodiment again of the purpose and the passion and the messenger, right, that is coming, or the message coming through you, the messenger. I truly believe it, going back to, again, hope, as we talked about earlier. I mean, who better than to deliver a message of the possibilities of hope in the deepest of suffering than yourself? And so again, thank you for who you are. Thank you for the 97 beautiful years and hopefully many more. And even just the inspiration of you putting out, I mean, having written books myself, it is no easy task. And to even imagine you putting out a book project. And so back to Jordan, what you're beautifully saying, I mean, if that isn't the embodiment of this almost limitless energy that we gain access to when we are in our purpose and in our passion and in that zone of flow, I don't know what else is. So again, I could probably continue this conversation asking you a million more questions, though. Thank you both for sharing so much of yourself, not only with me in conversation. Thank you for continuing to share your journey so freely with the collective for now, bringing in the younger generation who absolutely needs it. And before we end, any final thoughts, final words, and of course, please do let all listeners know, they don't yet know, where to find you or connect with you and we'll make sure that everything in terms of this new book, The Ballerina of Auschwitz, is in the show notes for easy access. Though anything, I guess, final before we end our time here together from both of you?
You know, Jesus was a Jewish boy, and he said, love thy neighbor as thyself. I think that's very wise. And I think it's also good when he said that we meet people where they are, but they treat them as if they were what they're capable of becoming. But when they turn the other cheek, to me it means look at the same thing from a different perspective. So maybe tonight you don't go in the front door, you may want to use the side window. I don't know, but maybe something different. Not better, not worse, but something that doesn't keep you just going around and around and around all the time.
Edie and I do a course together, and it's called From Revolving to Evolving, and that's one of a strong Edieism, but it's that idea that what are we doing in our life? You know, are we in that turnstile just stuck, or are we more like concentric circles? Because we do go forwards and backwards, but are we moving forwards a little more than we're moving backwards?
Mm-hmm.
And I think when we have a purpose that drives us, it makes it easier to continue moving forward. Even though we're going to slip, we know we're going to slip. As Edie says, we slip and we climb, we slip and we climb, but we never stop climbing.
Thank you. Thank
So,
you.
And so thank you again. I truly believe wholeheartedly that you have gifted as part of this conversation a perspective shift. I know for many listeners out there. And of course, if you're listening, I would love to hear in the comments what your takeaways are, perhaps your perspective shifts, really just generally your thoughts for listeners out there, though I know that you have given the gift of that perspective for the many of us in our revolving doors of stuckness, whatever might have led to it. And I truly believe as a result of this conversation, as a result of many members of my community picking up your new book, they will have not only the wisdom, the awareness, but then the tools to begin to become unstuck and to hopefully find their own ways into their own purpose and passion. So
You know what is important? To share silence with someone. You don't have to ask, do you love me? Yes, I do. Say it again. No, it's not, you don't have to say anything like that, but you can say, uh, the, the many minutes I spend with you wakes me up from many boredom, and I hope we can schedule more time so I can really be with you, and maybe we can even write a book together.
I am holding all of those visions and doors open. Again, it's just such an honor to be walking this earth at the same time as you, to have had these opportunities to connect with both of you, you included, Jordan. It was such an honor to meet you. And again, I will continue to look forward to when our paths continue to cross as you continue to inspire quite literally the entirety, in my opinion, of our world. So thank you, thank you both again.
I want to do one last comment about this book. Just, it is a book for everybody.
Yes.
It has the ability to reach a younger audience, and it's shorter, it's direct, it's a nonstop um, version of Edie's experiences as a young adult. But in no way is it not a book for older people or for people who already love Edie's work. This is a piece of her story that Edie felt the passion to explore in a more deep way, And I think there's so many lessons that come from the ballerina of Auschwitz that's unique to this book, that's separated from the choice. So because you've read the choice, it doesn't mean that you wouldn't want to read the ballerina of Auschwitz. They are well connected. There is some overlap in time period, but it is a book that is here to open up your memories of your childhood, to open up what we can learn from very challenging moments, and how Edie kept that message of hope alive in the moments before Auschwitz for her life, during, and then in the most challenging moments, keeping the hope alive after. And so it's a book that I hope the young generation does pick up. I believe in them as the future ambassadors of peace, as does Edie. And we really, I believe that this book is the opportunity for humans to understand a moment in history, but also a moment for themselves.
Thank you. Thank you, great grandson. Thank you. With a warm heart and a brilliant head. Beautiful. Thank you very much. Love you.
Yes. Thank you, Jordan, for ending on that note, because I couldn't agree more. I mean, I have read all of your work and know your story, and I couldn't put the book down. I read it cover to cover in one sitting. And as I said, I have a whole list of wisdom in the form of quotes and practical information that I am taking away with me to continue to inspire me on my journey. So thank you both. Of course, thank you all for listening, for tuning in. And of course, until next time.